Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast, powered by Carolina Electrical Services. For all your electrical needs, call 704-320-7357, and Jacob will get you squared away on that front. Josh here today. I'm joined by R.L. Bynum, who joined us after the first Duke-Carolina game, and he's with us again today to break down the Saturday game and look ahead to this week's upcoming ACC Tournament. R.L., how's it going today?
Doing good. How about you?
Doing pretty good. So I guess we'll go ahead and jump right into the 79-70 Carolina win on Saturday. It was Carolina's first sweep of Duke since 2008-2009. Also helped Carolina clinch a share of the ACC regular season championship, their 32nd in 66 years of the conference. So just want your initial thoughts on the game Saturday.
Well, what a magical way to go out for Kenny Williams. Obviously, most of the season his shot hadn't been going in, and he finally made some, and I think he had 5 3-pointers in the previous 8 games, and now he's made 6 in the last 2 games. But his big impact was on defense. He was just all over R.J. Barrett, who had 26 points but needed 27 shots to get it. And he was just harassing him the whole game, had the 2 big 3 drawn charges that got him into foul trouble. Probably had a 4th one if the referee had called it another way. But and then this defensive effort isn't enough to convince some ACC voters to put him on the all-defensive team, which was a little surprising. But you have to give it to Kobe White with his 12 points in a couple-minute stretch, had 3 3-pointers, who really turned the game around for Carolina, and he just seemed a little bit overwhelmed during the game at Cameron, and he seemed a little bit more comfortable on Saturday night, and you could tell. I mean, he had some amazing moves in that game. There was one play in particular where he did a spin move on Jones, then had a behind-the-back dribble to get by Barrett, then got by another guy for a bucket. That's got to be getting the attention of NBA scouts for sure. But even Krzyzewski suggested that it wasn't fair that he was doing all that in the postseason. Obviously kidding, but just a good overall effort until the offense kind of sputtered in the last 6 minutes. But then Carolina's defense, which has been very good in the last month or so, really saved Carolina during that period of time. And if you remember, there were consecutive games earlier in the season where nobody even earned the defensive award for UNC. So it's gotten better all around there, and I think that Kobe White has gotten a lot better with his on-the-ball defense in the recent games as well, and that certainly has made a difference.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the Carolina defense, because I thought in the first half, at least in my opinion, maybe you disagree on this, Duke looked a lot more comfortable on offense this go-around without Zion the first 20 minutes. But in the second half, they really struggled. They were like 9 of 39 or something like that from the field. And for the game, they only shot 34% and 25% from 3. Their 2 worst shooting games came against Carolina. Was the game Saturday more about them losing their legs or more about what Carolina just did on the defensive end that caused them to take the bad shots and, of course, that results in misses?
Yeah, I think it was a combination there. Of course, Kenny Williams played 39, but Trey Jones played 40 minutes. Cam Reddish played 39. R.J. Barrett played 38. And they obviously had less depth overall with Bolden going down early in the game. So I think that did wear on Duke eventually with Carolina running so much. And I think both factored in there. And Carolina played good defense in the last few minutes, but Duke did miss some shots that he usually would make, so they were helpful in that area.
Right. Also, the rebounds were even, 48-48, and Duke also had more offensive rebounds than Carolina. Was that something that when you looked at the box score was kind of surprising concerning the outcome? Because Carolina's been so dominant on the glass. They finished first in rebounding nationally for the third straight year. But if you'd have told me that Duke without Zion would have kept the battle of the boards even, I would have thought Duke might actually won the ball game. What were your thoughts on that area of the game?
Right, that was a big surprise. That did not expect that, particularly with Bolden and Zion not in the game. That probably is what kept it as close as it was until Kobe kind of gave Carolina the working margin for sure.
Right. And I guess maybe the final thing that was kind of not related to the game itself that was on the court, but Roy Williams improved to 9-0 versus Coach K in the final game of the season with first place on the line. Even though that he has a losing record against Coach K, would you kind of give him the upper hand in the rivalry between those two head coaches right now, just because when the games matter most, he's never lost to them in his now 16 years back in Chapel Hill?
Well, yeah, I'd say it is still even up, and you make a good point about the regular season titles being on the line and Roy Williams coming through in those games. But overall, it's been pretty even in the Roy Williams era with K versus Roy. So I don't know that there's a significant edge there.
Right, okay. All right, we'll move on to something you mentioned earlier. Yesterday, the all-ACC teams were announced, and there were some questions with some of the results. You mentioned Kenny Williams not making the all-defensive team. Zion Williamson made first team. All-ACC won the Player of the Year and the Rookie of the Year, besides missing the last 6 games of the season, which, of course, included both Carolina games. Roy Williams finished third in the Coach of the Year voting. I just wanted your initial thoughts when you saw the news on the All-ACC squads that came out yesterday.
Yeah, the biggest thing that jumped out at me is Kenny Williams not being seen as one of the 5 best defenders in the league. That really surprised me. Zion Williamson, you can't even though he missed so many games, you can't argue with him being the best player in the league this year, or the rookie of the year. Didn't have a lot of objections with that. I was good to see that Mayen and White both made second team. Generally, everyone was agreeing that Cameron Johnson would make the first team, so that wasn't a big surprise. But I'm just wondering when this Coach of the Year philosophy comes around to Tony Bennett, because generally the award goes to the coach who overachieves, and it just guys like Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams generally don't win this award because they're expected to do well, and it goes to somebody else. But somehow this rationale hasn't fallen to Tony Bennett yet, even though Virginia is up there and expected to do well every year. So I don't understand how that rationale continues to escape Tony Bennett. Buzz Williams, if you use the normal rationale, probably would have gotten the Coach of the Year. But,
right.
But if Tony Bennett can still win it, then why not Roy Williams? I don't think people at the beginning of the season expected Carolina to do as well as they did. Certainly not early in the season. So I kind of wondered about that. Yeah,
it's kind of funny. They set the program record for ACC wins in a regular season, and this is coming off a year where you lost your 2 senior leaders in Joel Berry and Theo Pinson, and then you have the early ugly loss to Louisville that really had everyone scrambling, and all this team did was, like you said, go 16-2 and share the ACC regular season title. So maybe because Tony Bennett doesn't have a Final Four on his resume, he gets a pass, and because I'm with you,
I don't know what the rationale is there, but it's kind of mystifying.
Right. Well, so lastly, we'll go ahead and we'll preview the ACC tournament. And just, is Carolina, in your opinion, the favorite going into this thing, assuming that, they're healthy? Because, Leaky Black did practice yesterday. Sterling has played some. They lost the Virginia game, but they were 4 minutes without Cam Johnson, and there was no Nazir Little, and, of course, there was no Leaky and Sterling. So is Carolina your favorite to win this whole thing, or is Virginia still the team to beat?
Oh, Virginia's still the team to beat, I would say for sure. And the thing about Virginia is they don't have to get through either Carolina or Duke to get to the championship game, whereas Carolina and Duke have to beat the other and Virginia to win it. So just right there, only having one really tough game instead of two, you have to give it to Virginia because, last year, I think Carolina was drained after the Duke game in Brooklyn, and it could have had an effect in the championship game. So, but Virginia earned it with the number one seed. They earned it by beating Carolina in the head-to-head. So
right.
You have to give them that. But, yeah, I'd have to say that Virginia's the favorite. And that Carolina-Duke game on Friday, you would have to think is for a number one seed.
That's something I was...
Because I think the loser of that game probably falls to a 2 seed. Because you look at who's going to get the number one seed. Gonzaga and Virginia are going to get number one seeds. If either Tennessee or Kentucky win the ACC tournament, that team is going to get a number one seed. And that leaves one for either Duke or Carolina, unless somehow Kentucky and Tennessee lose early in the ACC tournament, which I don't think is going to happen. That could be a major victory right there for Duke or Carolina, just making it to the championship game to get that number one seed.
Yeah, that's something I was going to ask you. Do you think Carolina, it's a necessity to make the final to get a number one seed, or do you think as long as they win their quarterfinal matchup Thursday, their resume is good enough if they were to lose a potential third game with Duke or another team Friday, if someone was to upset Duke, that Carolina would you see what I'm getting at? Like, does Carolina need to make the final to get the one seed, or do you think they got a good body of work with what they have now that it's not a necessity to get that coveted one seed?
I think they've got to make the championship game. I really do, because six losses is a lot of losses for a number one seed. If that sixth loss is against Virginia, having defeated Duke, that's probably enough to get a number one seed. But and Duke loses again to Carolina, and 6 losses and losing three games to Carolina. I certainly think they're going to be knocked back to the 2 line for sure. I'm just hopeful that even if Carolina gets bumped down to a 2, that they get to play Columbia instead of Jacksonville, Florida, or Columbus, Ohio.
Right. Okay, lastly, before I get you out of here, we all know that the 3 national championship teams that Roy Williams has coached, they never won the ACC tournament. I felt like in 2016, that team needed to win the ACC tournament to get to the Final Four. What do you think about this year's team? Do you think they need to win the ACC tournament to keep this run up, or would a loss be good for them? Because if they were to win the ACC tournament, that would give them almost they won. So it would be 9 straight wins entering the NCAA tournament. It's hard to win 13. That'd be 13 straight wins to make the Final Four, 15 to win a national championship. That's hard to do in college basketball. So do you think a loss would necessarily be good for this team, or do you think they should keep the momentum going?
I would never think a loss would be good. The only positive is that the team would be more well rested, particularly if they get sent to a Thursday-Saturday region. But no, I think winning the tournament would obviously give this team more confidence than they've already earned over the past few weeks. And if they were to beat Duke with Zion Williamson and beat Virginia, they would be on quite a bit of a high going into the tournament, and confident, and obviously would get a pretty good place in the bracket. Potentially at that point, maybe going to the East region in Washington instead of going to the Midwest in Kansas City. So, I mean, there are a lot of good outcomes if they were able to make it all the way through to Saturday and beat Virginia.
Right. Okay. Well, Aurel, I do want to thank you for joining us and give us a bit of your time. We always enjoy what you have. You always give great stuff on Twitter, and it's just an honor to have you on this podcast and educate myself and, of course, the listeners. So appreciate you for your time today.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.